My name is Levy Rozman. I'm an international chess master, content creator, and now an author. And I'm very excited today to be joined by Lee Child, best-selling author of the Reacher series.
You know, Reacher often gets talked about as if he is playing mental chess, looking ahead, 3-4 moves ahead. And I really want to talk to Levy about that because I feel that's not exactly how chess players see it. I haven't really played chess for more than 50 years since I was in high school. I was born in England, grew up in England, and was educated there. And I went to a really competitive school that was full of really smart people and very competitive people. And chess was something that was played, not in a nerdy, geeky way at all. It was just a fight to the death. You know, somebody had to win. One of my friends there, and we actually went on to the same university, was a guy called Tony Miles,
Wow.
who became England's first grandmaster, and had a sad life really thereafter. But when he was young, he was a good friend of mine, and I was fascinated by the fact that I could functionally play chess. I could probably beat my little brother or, you know, some random person. But clearly I was in a different universe than he was. And I wanted to know how it felt for him inside his head when he was playing chess. And this idea of thinking ahead sounds mechanistic, that it's like a sequence of equations, you know, this and then that means that. But he taught me that it really wasn't like that for him. He saw the board moving and seething and vapor trails of possibilities, that it wasn't I could do this, I could do that, I could do this third thing. It was happening visually on the board for him with heat maps and incredibly dynamic, as he described it. And that's actually much more like how Reacher thinks. You know, he doesn't sit there and academically puzzle it out. He sees it in his mind. This could happen, that could happen. He sees it happening in the same way that I as a writer see it happening. So I'm just typing what I see in this invisible picture. And that's what Reacher does in terms of his planning, and it's what this guy Tony Miles did. He saw it, incredibly dynamic, moving, mobile pictures in his head.
There was so much there. First of all, Tony Miles also was very famous because he defeated Anatoly Karpov by playing a really outlandish first move. He played a rook's pawn move on the edge of the board, which to a novice just looks like a regular move, but it's borderline insulting at the level that it was played. To insult a player with the pedigree of Anatoly Karpov, who was the best player in the world at his time and had a really long rivalry with Garry Kasparov, who many people think is the greatest of all time. And Tony Miles defeated him with this very strange first move. So that is a very special story, and I'm amazed to hear it. For chess specifically, I would say there's this punchline people always use, which is there are more possible chess positions than atoms in the universe, which every time I say I can't fathom, that just doesn't make any sense. I mean, how can this little 8x8 grid really truly have so many possibilities? But it's true, and the best way to make folks who are watching this understand how on earth chess players can comb through all of that is, I think a lot of it is pattern recognition, and something over 90% of those possibilities we don't even consider. So you sort of get to a point where it's the muscle memory of not crossing the street when there's a red light. Mm-hmm. So in chess there's that, but you don't put your piece on a square because you see that it can be captured and you sort of discard it. The rest is, as you described, it's a lot of calculation. So the more responsible chess players will not make a move on the board unless they have worked it out, they have calculated it under time constraints. And that can be something more general, such as I have a space advantage on the left side of the board, so I need to focus my pieces there. When you have a space advantage, you follow certain heuristics like I don't want to trade knights with you because then your defense will get easier. But if you don't have a general set of principles you can follow, you, yes, quite literally have to just sit there and go, if I do this, then maybe Lee has 3 possibilities. Against each of those possibilities, I probably have multiple possibilities as well. Then I work out that there's a problem somewhere, so I can either spend time fixing the problem or go back to my original idea and now select the, idea B and drill down. And if you just think about that, back in the day, and especially when Tony was playing, you could pause a game and go analyze it and come back the next day. They would adjourn games. Now you can't do that because your smartphone would solve the game. I mean, it's nice to reminisce about those times because it's a really special time in chess history. And the Queen's Gambit, actually, on Netflix, they showed people analyzing after the game was over and nobody knew the answer. Now they have to do all of this in time constraints. Sometimes they get 2 hours for the game. Some people play a full chess game in 1 minute. That's actually my favorite time control. You just play. Like you play on intuition. Every move happens in 1 second. The later stages of the game are chaos. You have to be very fast with a mouse or on your phone. It's really just a mix of pattern recognition and either those general principles or the specific skill of calculation, intuitively selecting ideas based on some previous knowledge you might have had, or how much of an artist you are. Like some players are just artistic. They come up with really creative ideas. I lean more toward the artistic side. My struggle is I oversee the general principles. So sometimes I try to force an idea that I think works. It doesn't. It leads to something very pretty, but I just get destroyed. So, but there's so much more I could say.
I mean, your point about the endless mathematical possibilities is incredible. They say that if you put 2 grains of rice on the first square and then 4 and then 8 and then 16, by the time you get to the far corner, you've got more grains of rice than there are molecules in the universe. Yeah. And so there must be a limit to how far ahead you can see, because pretty soon you're spiraling into a world of almost literally infinite possibilities that you can't pass sensibly, surely.
Yes, sometimes you rely on those sort of basic fundamentals that you know. Sometimes you rely on the time constraints. So I'm sure.
And do you ever switch halfway through? Like if you do, you're very considered at first and you're playing to your plan or your strategy, and then something happens that it spirals out of control. Do you then switch to the instinctive thing and just hope for the best?
Yeah, I can give you an example of sort of 2 answers to that question. Sometimes let's say we were playing a game and we both have 90 minutes for the entire game. So we're pressing each other's timer. You're playing much faster than me. So you're putting a lot of psychological pressure on me, and now I have 20 minutes for the rest of the game. You still have 1 hour. That's a terrible feeling, because at any point, if I make a mistake, you get to pause, use your allotted time, and beat me. And so that puts me under a massive shift. Now I need to trust my instincts. I need to play much faster. Bobby Fischer said he doesn't believe in psychology, but so much of chess is psychological. Everybody who watches this understands the psychological struggle of playing chess, whether it's the clock, whether it's the real person element. So yeah, absolutely you have to shift. It is only the best players in the world get to stick always to that playing style.
It's like writing a book when deadline is approaching.
Yes.
Your manner and your method is going to change at that point.
You might sacrifice some quality, hopefully not. I imagine the best don't sacrifice quality, but yeah, imagine having 10 seconds to make a move. I mean, at some point, panic starts setting in, but it's the same if you're a character and you need to solve something. You rely on some facts or some data points that you've used before. That's what all good chess players do, but very frequently you float out into something you've never seen before, and now that's just pure chess skill.
Are there special qualities in speed chess? Literally, if you do have 10 seconds, does that make you rely on deeply subconscious structures, and because nothing is ever really random, it's all based on what you know deep down. Do you find if you have to do it really fast, does that produce a different game, sometimes a better game?
It's a great question. If I had to answer, how can somebody with 5 seconds to make every single move, or 10 seconds to make every single move, how do they possibly play all the best moves all the time? Like you said, it's not random, and also it's not lucky. There's no luck in chess, but I always say you kind of earn your luck a little bit in chess, depending on the position, depending on the, again, psychology. I think a lot of it still somehow deeply subconsciously comes down to intuition and a sense of patterns somewhere. I had a game somewhere deep rooted. 7, 8 years ago, I played something, and I want to attack you, but in doing that, I'm going to weaken my own position, and I know that this can come back to bite. So instead, I'm going to play it safe. I don't have that much time, so I'm going to play it a bit more safe. Some players are the opposite. They know that when time gets low, they're going to go on the attack. Why? Because let's say I'm a really dominant speed player, and you know that. You're going to trust me as we both go down the rabbit hole late in the game. Even though you might not have to trust me. I might be playing terribly, but you're going to play defensively, and it's a style type of clash. So,
and how much of that is dependent on the identity of your opponent?
A lot.
Yeah, so you know the person, you're predicting not only the possible moves, but also what the other player is going to see and not see.
Yeah, I imagine it's the same as a villain in the story, right? Yeah. If you know who you're up against, you're gonna. If the villain is anonymous, that makes things. Maybe you trust yourself more, but it also makes things a bit mysterious. But, for example, right now the best player in the world is the Norwegian Magnus Carlsen, and people melt against him down the stretch. There are positions where he is at a disadvantage, but the second he starts conjuring up something, it makes you freeze somehow. And it happens to me too. Sometimes when I play people that are significantly stronger than me, just simply on the numbers, I get to a point where I go, oh, I have an advantage here. I better not mess this up, instead of just playing.
And is that different if it's face-to-face? I mean, if you were playing Magnus Carlsen by mail, for instance, technically you've got the same opponent, but is it the force of personality, the charisma just radiating at you? Does that make it worse?
I think for some, it would be different in person versus online. I think for people at a similar level, playing in person is a little bit more challenging than playing online. But actually online is more relaxed. You can sit at home, you can not wear pants. I mean, you can whatever, because you're not on camera. But for me, it doesn't matter. It could be online, it could be face-to-face. I actually tried something recently where I installed an extension on my browser, which would completely mask the identity of who I played. And I beat some of the strongest players in the world. So that to me was a big wake-up call. Here's the problem: when I go play in tournaments, I cannot put a black box over my, like a little robot to make the moves. So that was quite fascinating, and it boosted my confidence that I have the skills, but now I just have to get there mentally. So. And
what's the difference if you're just playing at home with a friend? It means nothing. Nobody's ever going to see it. But if you're playing in a tournament with a camera over the board, then the whole world is seeing it. And does that make you feel different? Because it's a bit like writing a book. You know, it's an incredibly personal thing to do, but you're aware. Hopefully, millions of people are going to read it. You're exposed. Everybody's watching.
Yeah.
That must make you feel more vulnerable?
For sure, simply because writing a book or even playing a sport is relatively subjective on the side of the audience. So the audience sees it and they can review a book, they can review a show, they can even review how an athlete is performing even though they've never played the sport. Chess is objective. So, like I said, with the smartphone, everybody's watching the game with the computer turned on, and it's quite literally telling you how big of an idiot you are at any given moment. Yeah. So that's the brutal thing, is that I can be an educator, for example, with my book or my YouTube channel, but people can watch my game and go, oh, he's so stupid, like how did he miss that move? But they don't understand that they also would have missed it, and even something potentially more elementary. So it's one thing to criticize football players, tennis players. He should have passed there, or she should have hit the ball to the baseline or something. But in chess, it's objective.
How much of your career was before that mass analysis and computers and so on? Because you get the feeling in the previous generation, people couldn't do that to you. They couldn't say, yeah, that failed 57% of the time. They didn't know unless they worked it out on paper very laboriously.
So I would say computers became stronger than humans when Garry Kasparov in 1997 lost to the IBM machine. In 96, he beat it. In 97, he lost. But that was IBM with basically all of its power against Kasparov. Household computers, where anybody can have one on a laptop, really only became publicly available in, let's say, 2004, 2005. So you could analyze a position and it would give you recommendations when I was about 9 or 10 years old. And even then, it was not always the best. You could somehow argue with it. You could actually discuss a position with a machine. It would say, white is better. And you would say, really? I'm going to play black. Like, prove it to me. And 6 or 7 moves later, it would notice a resource and it would change its mind and say, oh, you know what, you're right. But computers have no punishment for that. You know, humans do. But now with neural networks, it's impossible. Right. You can't argue with it.
I had it was like a travel chess set, you know, you opened it up, but it was electronic in as much as when you put the piece down into its little hole and then it would blink to where the other one should move. But it was very crude. I once beat it with like one move. I can't remember how, but it lost on its second move. And so it was obviously not a very good computer. This must have been in the 90s or even the 80s, I think.
Yeah, and I do wonder what they used to program those with. I'll tell you, when I fly on planes, whatever computer they put into those chess apps on a plane, if you're not interested in the movies, those I can defeat in 5 to 10 moves. But the story I always tell is I was in a hotel in Texas and I was about to play a tournament. So I went to the gym, like a good chess player should. I got on the treadmill. I saw it had a chess app. I wanted to boost my confidence. I lost to a treadmill. Why did they program a treadmill with like a, supercharged AI? I have no idea, because a MacBook will beat you, a Windows PC will beat you, most chess engines will beat you. Why did I lose to a treadmill?
AI is such a big deal, we talk about that in fiction writing as well, because we're seeing stories written by AI that are pretty good. But it seems, obviously the definition of AI is that it's learning, which means that it can only learn what has already happened. So in terms of innovating, it can't do anything because that hasn't happened yet. So do you see space still for radical new inventions, new moves, new styles, something that would beat the finest AI?
There is no way for a human to take down an AI. They are our overlords in chess, but we have a benevolent relationship because what we do is we take some of the AI inspiration and use it against humans. So the best way I can describe that is, certain computers will say, for example, like the French defense, which is an opening everybody can play at every level of chess. The machine says, black will never win in the French because you have a lack of space, you block some of your pieces, and it's a bad opening. Does that mean all humans should abandon the French defense forever? No, because no human being who plays with the white pieces can handle the position like a machine can. There will be mistakes. You will overextend your pieces. You will try to go for an attack because you have a space advantage, but it will fail. Then you will lose. So you kind of have to take what the computer says in chess with a bit of a grain of salt, but some of its ideas are really breathtaking. Magnus Carlsen himself learned from a recent AI innovation, which was the Google DeepMind AlphaZero. That it was a machine that learned how to play chess just knowing the rules. It played itself for either 4 to 8 hours. It played millions of games, and within 8 hours, it was the best entity that could play chess in the world, digital or human. And then it wrote thesis, like multiple theses on different openings, and it said, French is bad, white should stick to these few openings. And humans learned that, actually, there are some positions where pushing your rook pawns really far to gain space. Like, that's the thing that the AI likes to do. So now we think about certain positions differently. You get a position, a middle game, like you and I both play 15 moves. We're in the middle of a battle. And I think, what would an AI do in this position? Which is not something we could have done, 10 years ago, it's all humans. What would Kasparov do? What would Magnus do in this position? Now it's what would Stockfish do? What would Leela with these neural nets do? And then that's how you try to come up with ideas. Now, if I try to play like an AI, I might look like a complete moron because I'm playing like myself. I might have forgotten what it taught me. And so I don't think humans have, 99.999% of humans have the ability to truly, deeply internalize and understand AI. We let the top players handle that. And the last point is, if we speed up chess to make it more commercially viable or better on television, none of that is going to matter. A human will need 40 minutes to analyze a position where the AI goes, pawn here, that's the best move. So
you notice I'm asking a lot of questions, so I don't have to start showing how bad I am at this.
Oh, no, we...
how does it make you feel as a person? I mean, presumably this is something you got into as a kid and it's a big part of your life, that machines are so competitive or dominant even. The absence of that personal inspiration now. Does that bother you, that change? Or is it just another challenge to be, because one assumes that a career in chess is an endless sequence of challenges until you finally lose and you're gone. But the biggest challenge of all is machines. I mean, how do you feel as a human being that it's your thing is dominated now by this massive artificial intelligence scenario?
I think I'm not too prone to existential dread, luckily, for now. So, I must say I'm also not a competitive player to the level of some of the top athletes. In terms of it existing, I try to utilize it for my content as much as possible. So when there's a computer championship and these two titans are playing and I'm sitting like, wow, and I try to break it down for folks at home. But at the same time, there was a period where ChatGPT tried to play chess and pieces quite literally teleported across the board. I mean, that was hilarious, because it's ridiculous. It's not chess, but it's whatever ChatGPT is trying to do, and it forgets the board, and then it starts making moves like this, and it at some point it like spawns two kings or something, and that was a fun period. But I do have to say, I think I'm worse as a chess player with the existence of the AI because I so blindly trust it. So when I'm preparing for tournaments, I see, oh, white has an advantage, so this must be good. And then I get to the tournament and I'm playing and I go, how the hell does white have an advantage? Like, what do I even move? And it's because the computer saw a sequence that's 8 moves long, that's really obscure, and that's the way you get your advantage. I think I would enjoy chess a bit more if I could hang out with a couple buddies and analyze a position, sure, argue, debate, etc. But
and what happens if you make a move and you're anticipating that 8-move sequence or 4-move sequence or whatever it might be, but the other guy screws up completely?
Yeah.
Does that then throw you off, or does it give you more opportunity?
No, that's a very keen question. So let's say you came to the board memorizing a bunch of stuff, and you prepared it with your AI back home, and you played something that I didn't remember. Naturally, what that means is you made a mistake, because my AI never said that that this move was good. Yeah, but the problem is I don't know the refutation. So now I'm on my own, and if I don't figure it out, if I don't refute your bad move, it might have been the best move. You know what I mean? Like now I've given you something you shouldn't have been able to play, and that happens sometimes. You actually see this very often where a top player plays memorized preparation, and the first move out of their memory, they spend 40 minutes. Because they can't do it on their own. They didn't analyze it sufficiently by themselves. They let the AI handle it. And I know that it's kind of wild that's how it works, because we so blindly trust the machine. Chess is objective, so not subjective. So that's kind of a fascinating point about it.
You do get random results. Like I say, when I was back in high school, I once beat a guy who had once beaten Tony. So in a sense,
yeah,
I beat Tony.
Yeah, that's how it works. I've beaten players who've beaten Magnus, so but I've never. Do you remember Any openings that you used to play back in the day, or?
No, I mean, I am so not in your league, but
That's okay.
I would just play conventional, always look at the center of the board, probably do the two space move for the first.
Yep.
And then without any sense really of strategy or what was going to happen, just make it reactive every time. So that, I mean, less reactive playing white because you feel you're moving first, you're sort of in charge. But I never had any strategy. I could never say, this is what I'm going to do 5 moves from now. It was just try to do something that wasn't totally stupid and then react to the next thing.
It's important to also point out that what you mentioned with strategy, I have done, for example, an interview before about chess, and then we break, and my host there says, you know, I wanted to learn chess, but I'm not good at thinking ahead. It's like, of course you are. Everybody, yeah. I mean, that's not, we sell ourselves short, but all of this stuff with 3, 4, 5 moves, it's all patterns. And if you rep it enough, it gets easier. But, you know, for example, the London opening, right? The London opening is, like you said, you go 2 with the queen's pawn. Black, of course, has many options, but let's say black plays symmetrically. Already here, as you said, we're both fighting for the center. I'm fighting for this square. You're fighting for this square. And now we're going to, and we've stopped each other from moving a second pawn freely. So in the London system, white develops the knight to the center. You develop the knight also. And then, you know, now I have 3 squares that are fighting for a central square. And stuff like this is, for anybody that's going to watch this, it's relatively straightforward. The learning curve to get onboarded in chess is actually a lot less intimidating than people think. It's what you said after, it's the strategy. Yeah. You know, am I trying to go here, or am I trying to, you know, hop in and destroy your king within 5 moves? And I think, you know, beginners get very obsessed with winning quickly, so they want to, you know, bring the queen out, bring the bishop, and then they do something like that, but except in this direction. Like, you know, 4-move checkmate. I won in 4 moves.
Yeah.
But
that's the thing. And also I find that the worse you are at chess, the more anxious you are not to lose pieces. And it surprises me all the time. Great players are cavalier about losing pieces, even queens and stuff, because if they have a plan and that's not germane to it, they don't mind.
Actually, speaking of, I think one of our things here is a sacrifice. So beginners oftentimes will say, oh, I sacrificed you know, a piece when they actually lost it. A sacrifice is when you get something back, generally. So I'll rotate it to your side, and I will set up. I'm sure you are aware, you know, what a sacrifice is, but for folks at home, we can play through a position. And a lot of sacrifices happen in regular games. They just appear. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't work. There's a bishop and a bishop. You have a very active position, so you have the queen there, your king castled. That can be a term for folks at home to get their kings to safety. There is no pawn. There is a bishop here. Clearly, there was some sort of capture there a moment ago. And you have another rook. So already we have many terms that can appear in a chess game. And again, it's all patterns. White castled, queen side, so the long way, right? Because there was 3 squares between the king and the rook. Also here, there is something called a battery, which is when 2 pieces that can fight on the same straight line or diagonal fight together. So right now, the battery is queen and rook. 14 points of firepower going straight down. However, it doesn't look like there is any way to get to my king because this rook is blocked. I have this bishop in the way. You don't want to capture it because the rook is 5 points and the bishop is 3. Also, if you took a look at the position, you might say, oh, my bishop's in danger. He's going to take it. So, of course, I should move, right? I should run to safety. That's a very logical move. It just so happens that in this position you have something significantly better than that. But if I had a student who played a retreating move here, I would say, okay, like, that's fine. I mean, you saw the bishop was in danger, you did something very logical. But one thing that I try to really instill in folks with the deck, with the book, with videos, anything, is you should always look at the most forcing moves that you have first. What that means is a move where you know your opponent's response. So they are forced to do something. The bishop retreat is not a forcing move, because I can do anything I want.
Yep, sure.
Anything. But a forcing move is frequently a check, an attack on the king. You have a check, actually just one. You want to play it?
I would have to play that.
Yes.
But that would then be a quick exchange. You would take it with that. That's
Correct.
really your only way out.
Yes. Otherwise, it's checkmate.
Yeah.
I have no other way. No, you're right.
And then this guy takes your bishop. And
then I have backup.
yeah,
And so you lost
I lost the
a lot.
yeah
a lot.
for no point.
Yes. And now you still have all the same problems.
Yeah.
But there was an interesting detail there, because of course we're on the sacrifice card here. So in some cases, this is just a terrible move. And you did something which is very instructive. You followed the path, right? I'm going to take, but
not necessarily.
right.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing there about the calculation is the first move was not necessarily wrong. It was the second move.
That is wrong. Yeah.
Yes, and so just like I imagine Reacher would have to do, it doesn't mean you discard the entire idea. We've now cleared out.
Yeah. The king can't move that way at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Not right now, anyway.
now we have access here. The bishop used to block the path.
Yeah.
This actually is checkmate, because this bishop,
Yeah.
which is hanging twice, defends the rook, which attacks the king, and white actually wins by force. 2 moves. And this is quite challenging. I mean, this is in a game situation where no one's telling you, stop, you have something here, that's hard. You try to get beginners and intermediate players to stop just for a second during games and go, do I have a sacrifice here? All the puzzle solving you do in the world, whether it's in a book, online, chess.com, wherever, they always tell you, stop, there's a puzzle. But in a chess game, nobody ever tells you that. So this is a sacrifice. You invested a queen, but you won the game, which obviously is very nice. Now, they gave me puzzles. So I actually have, I can set you up a puzzle if you'd like to try. And we can go through it if it's. So by the way, it's another position where white is castled on the queen side. So the long castle, except here, so am I. These are they're sometimes made up positions and sometimes they're from real games. I know from my book, I tried to source positions from both imaginary made up positions, but also from sometimes my viewers would submit their games and there would be some tactical situations. It's white to move and play a sacrifice for a checkmate. So you sacrifice, I respond, and you checkmate. It's much easier when you're told. Nobody in chess, your opponents generally don't tell you. And you may be tempted to take the queen,
Yeah.
but I'm protected, so
Yeah. So I'm not going to do that.
that's a trade, not a sacrifice. The good news is it's actually very difficult to sacrifice a piece. You kind of will be naturally led to.
It sort of depends on your opponent doing what you expect them to do.
Yeah, but if you do it the right way, you'll consider a move where I only have one response.
Right.
A forcing move.
I mean, this looks like a great square to be in, but it's protected there.
Yes.
And
But let's follow that path. So you're gonna take here.
yeah, let's say I do that.
Yes. In a game, don't do it unless you're certain.
Yeah.
So now, do you have a follow-up? We cleared out the diagonal.
Yeah.
That's actually checkmate. The bishop. This is called Boden's. I don't know who the heck Boden is, but that's just the name.
Probably somebody.
Yeah, who either invented it or patented it, but it's a sacrifice where you open a queenside castled king, see, pattern recognition, and you checkmate with the bishops. That's checkmate in 2. I've done a similar checkmate in some games, but I've actually done it with my knight somehow getting over here,
right.
and this is also cut off.
Yeah.
So, well done. That was well spotted. So that's a sacrifice. Of course, losing material and then calling it a sacrifice is not quite a sacrifice. But yeah, that was brilliantly executed. So
It's really fascinating to me, writing tough guy thrillers, because you don't want to sacrifice. You want the guy to win magnificently with no loss to himself. I think that's what the reader wants to see happen. And the idea of a strategic, taking a blow to the face, taking a broken arm or something like that, and winning in the end might be a technical satisfaction and it might solve the problem, but it's not dignified. And so a lot of people, I think, find it very difficult to contemplate sacrifice, because losing a piece always feels like a defeat.
yeah, or losing, I don't know, a character. Sometimes you watch and there's a character who you just could not believe would not be in the final, victory scene or something like that. So
Sure.
yeah, sometimes a sacrifice is sadly required, but and in chess too. In chess, the best players don't win every single time, but they win most of the time, and that's you have to take a couple of blows to ultimately get to the title or to the championship or.
So it is fundamentally egotistical about needing to win, but the process does not necessarily have to be egotistical. You don't have to defend every piece. You don't have to win every exchange. You just have to win in the end.
I once saw Garry Kasparov, some sort of course advertisement, and he's of course one of the two greatest, and he said, it's a course about improving your chess, but also improving your decision-making, critical thinking, and he said, it's not always about winning and losing, but at the end of the day, it's all about winning and losing.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, funny, I actually once met Kasparov in a completely different context. My daughter was selling her apartment, and he wanted to buy it.
What?
And he had to win. It didn't happen because he was so particular about the deal. He had to win the deal, and I thought, yeah, this is a totally competitive guy. That his entire being was about coming out on top, which is true, I think, of all athletes.
If you want to learn more about chess, and I really think you should, it's a really wonderful game, and the learning curve is not as steep as you think. You can check out the chess deck, How to Win at Chess 1, and maybe How to Win at Chess Part 2 coming out in the future, but don't tell anybody.
Well, I'm going to get both of those books. Thank you, Levy. This has been great, and I hope you're going to look at In Too Deep, the new Reacher book, which you can get right now. And I have to say, there's no chess in it.
But there will be in the next one.
There could be, yeah. I mean, can Reacher be so good at everything that he also wins at chess? It would appeal to his mind. It really would. So maybe.